can't hide from me, Muse. No matter how hard you try, I know you're there. Why? Because I know things. How you doing, Muse? Sorry we missed last week's conversation, but you know, life tends to happen. So I have, of course, something I want to talk to you about, Muse. Today, as I usually do. Yesterday, I guess I should have started this by saying I have more news with regards to iZombie. And that's kind of what led me to the conversation, the topic for the conversation at hand. So I get an email from the gentleman who has optioned iZombie, and he says once he started diving into it that he realized it was probably better suited for television than for film. Partially because of the depth of the universe and how much source material there is. It would be more likely to get a television series that would have multiple seasons than to have films that would continue on based on the series. Although he is still pitching it to certain production companies as a film. But right now he's concentrating it on the assumption that he thinks that it would be much easier for it to be picked up as a TV series, which I am all for. Let it be a TV series. Yes. But during our conversation, he asked me, well, we kind of got into a discussion about the overall theme of the iZombie universe. And we batted around certain ideas. One of them being the battle between hopelessness and humanity's better nature. Because throughout the series we have Jacob or Bethany fighting against human nature to try to continue the species on. And that got me thinking today while I was just out for my run in some rather brutal heat. Oy vey, as it were. That idea, not the theme for the iZombie universe, but that idea transcends the written word. And becomes incredibly important, becomes crucial to every type of artistic endeavor. And let me explain to you, Muse. One of the things as an artist, as a writer, as an actor, whatever, as a painter, as a musician, as a director, as a designer, one of the things that we have to do is come up with the driving force of our work. What is the spine? And we there are so many different terms for this. Even like in the world of theater, every director will have their own term for what this is. But there is always something, one overarching idea that pushes the work forward. And it is important, it is crucial that every element of that work cling as if their life depended upon it to that theme. So you've decided that you're going to write a series of books. And you know you're going to write in X genre, doesn't matter what genre. And you have this really cool idea for what this book is. And that's great. But before you even write that first word, you have to decide what is the driving force of this work. What is the overarching theme of the work? Not just of the one book, but of the entire, if you're going to write a series of books, What is the theme of the entire series? What is it that drives this universe forward? Okay? Once you have that theme, let's just say your theme is, you can draw from the traditional plots like man versus man, man versus wild, blah, blah, blah. Of course, you want to be much more specific than just man versus man, because that is way too general. But let's just stick with the idea of hopelessness versus man's better nature. Let's just say that is the overarching theme of your series. Okay? With that in mind, then you have to come up with a plot of the first book that falls in line with that theme. And then you have to come up with characters that are driven by that theme. And then you have to write scenes that adhere to that theme. You have to write dialogue that keeps that theme in mind. You see where I'm getting at? Now, of course, every single element of that book should not, indirectly should apply to the theme, but you should have characters that are in polar opposition to that theme. Otherwise, you have a very boring book where your main character just kind of trots along through the plot of the book and never has any obstacles. So you come up with your overarching theme, then you come up with the plot of the book that applies to the theme or that adheres to the theme, and you have the characters that are driven by the theme and the plot, and then you put obstacles in the way of the character achieving their goals. And their goals are in line with the plot, which is in line with the theme. So you see how it all interconnects? Because if it doesn't interconnect, especially if you're writing a series of books, if it doesn't interconnect, what you're going to have is absolute chaos. And you're going to, this is very common with writers who don't quite understand how to work this way. They will they'll write a book, and they decide, and then this book enjoys some level of popularity, and they decide, well, I'm going to just keep writing this. So they write another book, and then they write another book, and then they write another book. And yes, the books are related. They have similar characters, or they have the same characters. They have one or two characters that go throughout, and the characters are trying to achieve similar goals between book one and book two and book three. But what happens when you don't have that overarching theme of the series is that out of nowhere, you will have a book that's thrown into the mix that seems out of place. And that almost, to a reader's from a reader's perspective, I can talk. From a reader's perspective, it seems like the writer just tossed this in just to continue the series on, without any rhyme or reason. And he kind of jumps the shark. And of course, that's the last thing we want as artists, is to jump the shark. If you don't know what that means, it's from a long time ago. I remember it because I'm old enough to remember it. It's from the TV series Happy Days. And at some point in the series, they kind of ran out of ideas, and they decided to have Fonzie jump a shark on water skis. So hence the saying, jump the shark. Because at that point, the show had totally gone off the rails and was no longer the show that had everybody in America enthralled at the time. And, well, it was kind of a joke. So the last thing you want to do is have a book in your series that jumps the shark. Donning the leather jacket or not, it can't jump the shark. Because you lose readers. Because once you've jumped the shark, once you throw in a book in your series that no longer adheres to the overarching theme of the book, chances are people are gone. People are lost. They're not going to continue reading at that point. So it is important. It is nay, crucial that you have an overarching theme for your series that each book can support. Now, of course, you can always mix it up a bit, and let's just say you have this overarching theme of hopelessness versus man's better nature, and you've got 3 or 4 books in there, and each book kind of drives that theme forward, and you get to, let's say, book 4 or 5, and you go, I'm going to throw a 360. I'm going to throw a wrench into the works with this book. I'm going to throw in an obstacle that is so great that the main characters cannot overcome within the boundaries of this one book. You can do that. And then, of course, in the next book, they recover and they get back on track. That's not jumping the shark. That's just tossing in some serious drama. Because the one thing that you always have to have is you always have to have main characters that go up against obstacles. If you throw no obstacles in the way of the characters, you're writing something boring. Now, the other end of the spectrum, you cannot continually just throw obstacles at a character. I have read books where every paragraph was another obstacle for a character. And everything was of utmost importance. Oh my God, it's a cup of coffee! I gotta drink this cup of coffee right now because my life depends upon it. Oh my God, there's no spoon to stir the sugar in my coffee. Oh my God. You know people like that, right? They are exhausting. So you can imagine a reader reading a book like that. They're going to get exhausted. They're not going to finish it. So you can't just vomit a bunch of obstacles in front of the characters. So they've got to have obstacles. Maybe one every chapter. Who knows? You can break it. Very popular to break it into acts. Three acts in your book, and have one big obstacle in each act. There are formulas. You can look them up. But you know how I feel about formulas. Not a fan. Not a fan of the formula. A fan of breaking the formula. Not a fan of adhering to the formula. But we all know that. So, the moral of this story, my dear Muse, is to know, to truly know what your book's about, what your series is about, and make sure that it all interconnects with one another. Because, face it, if all of a sudden you are faced with a producer from LA and they say, what's your elevator pitch for this series? You gotta know. You can't just say, well, it's a post-apocalyptic series wherein blah, blah, blah. You gotta say, hey, it is hopelessness versus man's better nature. That's the one sentence pitch. And of course, you've got to have your elevator pitch, which is a little bit longer, a little bit more in depth, but not too great in depth, of course. But that theme has to be something exciting and something that people want, that makes people go, ooh, I like that. Because if you can't catch their attention like that, you've lost their attention like that. It's just like, think of it this way. For those of you who have ever done any acting, for those of you who have ever had to audition for anything, you know that when you go into an audition, you get about 30 to 60 seconds of a monologue. And that's fine. You can find plenty of monologues that are 30 to 60 seconds. And if not, you can always cut down a monologue. We all know how to do it if you've ever auditioned before. But the thing is, although you get that 30 to 60 seconds, you really only have 10 seconds to capture their attention. If you haven't caught their attention in the span of that first 10 seconds, you've lost their attention. And having that exciting, overarching theme for this series, having it exciting, is going to help you as a writer, because it makes it very easy to then develop a plot for a book that adheres to that theme. I mean, if you've got a boring, overarching theme, you're going to come up with boring books. Anyway, that's kind of what I had to talk about, based on the fact that I had a conversation with the man who optioned iZombie, who thinks it's going to be better as TV. Now, I'm good with that. I am so good with that, because at the moment there are more people watching television than there are going to the movies. And there's just more possibility. And if you are a writer and you have high hopes of seeing your work on the big silver screen, you might want to rethink that, because every freaking network is going to streaming services, and they are hungry for content. Hungry. And they're all scrambling to find the next big thing. It's a new world out there. And we are the creators. We make possibility happen with our words. So anyway, all the fingers crossed that one of these production houses decides, hey, yes, we want this. We're going to do this. Let's make some serious magic. Anyway, I wouldn't be here without you, Muse, because, you give me the ideas, and I take those ideas and I apply them to the overarching theme. You know what I'm saying? You, Muse. Why? Because you, my dear friend, are awesome.